Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Jedi Hill, and this is episode 8 of trying to help you get to freedom, whether it's mental, emotional, financial, time freedom, or even, fighting your government to regain the freedoms they're trying to take away. Today's special guest is the 37th most interesting man in the world. He's got a new upcoming book called No Bad Days. Jeffrey Holst, or we'll just call you Jeff. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, it's Jeff Holst, actually, like a holster, but close enough, right? Yeah, I've actually, it's funny you said that the hoist thing there, actually, because
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. So when I was the graduating class speaker of my law school class, right? So the dean says to me, Mr. Hoist, how do you pronounce your name? And I said, well, it's not Hoist, it's Holst. And then he says, oh, so the I is silent. And I'm like, no, there's no I in my name, it's an L. And then I'm like, it's like a holster, you hold a gun like that. And he goes, okay, I got it, it's Holst, no problem. Got up to introduce me, he still introduced me as Mr. Hoist, which was fine, because then they had this other guy introduce me after that. It was like the weirdest thing. And that guy's name, I'll never forget it. His name was God, I can't even believe I'm going to say this online. Hopefully he's not watching your show, but his name is Richard Weiner. And he was a trustee, and I was required, I could say whatever I wanted for my speech, but I had to start my speech with thank you, Trustee Weiner. Like, I literally had to start by saying thank you, Trustee Weiner. So if you think mispronouncing my name is bad, try keeping a straight face when you're saying that in front of a law school crowd.
Oh, that's hilarious. You just got to feel for people like that, because they got picked on in school, and hopefully gave them the thick skin to get through life.
So the real question is, did his parents hate him at birth, though? Like, if your last name is Weiner, do you really want to name your kid Richard?
Exactly.
I mean, come on. But you know where that's going.
But still, it could still be from a loving, the tough love, because if you've got a name that weird, you're going to be picked on so much. It's either going to break you,
right? It's like maybe they were just Johnny Cash fans.
Well, yeah, I just like the thought that, it's either going to break you or make you.
Yeah, and he actually is a very successful guy. He was a trustee of a law school, for crying out loud. I think he was the chair of like the state party or something too, like one of the political parties up in Michigan at the time too. I don't remember actually too much about him, because it wasn't like someone I really knew.
Gotcha. Green screens. That is cool. So what got you to write your upcoming book, No Bad Days? Because I know you've been on quite a fun journey the last few years.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I have been. So, when I was 17, I made this decision to give up bad days, and it's worked really well for me. And so I like telling people about it. So I told people, I'd go into a gas station or something and be like, they would say, hey, how you doing today? And I'd be like, I never have bad days. And then they would say like, oh, it must be nice. And then I would explain, well, yeah, it is, but it's also a choice. And I take them through the whole process. And I've been doing this for like a couple of decades now, right? Like 28, 29 years, something like that. And at one point, I sat down to write a blog post about that. I was like, I'm going to write a blog post about what I think is important. And then I thought, actually, I got to explain it more. So I went to context and started writing about how I came to this revelation. And it's something that I reveal in the book that I never talked publicly about before the last few months while I've been doing interviews leading up to our launch. But I actually was at a critical point in my life. At 17, I walked into a bathroom with a knife and I held it against my wrist. And it was in that moment that I made that decision. I said, I'm young and healthy. Yes, there's a bunch of garbage going on. I broke up with a girl, whatever. And like my parents were getting a divorce and all that stuff, but it wasn't significant in the longer scheme of my life. And I just came to that realization and thought, I have to figure out how to have a good day today. I don't need to worry about tomorrow or the next day or the next day. I just need to figure out how to make today a good day. So I threw the knife in the kitchen sink and I walked away from that day by saying over and over again, today's a good day. Today's a good day. Today's a good day. And this, We all know this now, positive affirmations work, but in the late 90s, well, this was really the mid 90s, like 96, 95, somewhere around there. At that time, like, this is pre-Google, like we didn't have YouTube, and I didn't know who Tony Robbins was, so I didn't have this like knowledge about what I was doing. I just did it, and I did it long enough that after maybe 2 or 3 months, I walked into a 7-Eleven and the guy behind the counter said to me, how's your day today or something? And I go, I never have bad days. Without even thinking, I just came out of me. I never have bad days. And then I went, holy shit, I never have bad days. And I was like, this works. And that's, I was 17, then, 44, I'm gonna be 45 in like 2 weeks, like, so it's literally like longer than a depreciation schedule on residential property,
There you go. Yeah, because it's what, 27 years for residential,
27
and
and a
33
half
for
years
commercial.
Depreciation, and I'm at like 28 years of no bad days. So, I used to say it was a quarter century because that sounded pretty cool, but then I realized it made me sound really old. So I'm trying to get younger. Turning 45 is halfway to 90.
Hey, you're not even middle aged till you hit 50, so you still got a little ways to go.
I'm still in my lower 40s right now. For another couple weeks.
I just hit 41 myself, so it's like I'm in that transition between that Generation X and the millennials. So it's like I can still have a life before computers.
Yeah, for sure.
I could use them. And for your no bad days, it reminds me of Zig Ziglar, where your attitude determines your altitude.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works, right? I have a lot of thoughts about that, but that quote's as good as any. The one that I usually go to is Hal Elrod, the Miracle Morning guy. He wrote in one of his books, I think it might even be in Miracle Morning, he wrote, the moment that you accept full responsibility for everything in your life is the moment you can change anything in your life. Right? So like, it's not that bad stuff doesn't happen to me. If you, and that's kind of the point of my book, right? Is I take people through this journey of life lessons that I learned, starting with the decision to give up bad days, but then how that works over time, so it's a series of life lessons, things I've gone through. Like when I got diagnosed with leukemia at 30 and thought I was going to die, and people were coming into the hospital and saying to me like, oh, I bet today's a bad day. It was almost like they wanted to prove it wasn't possible to go without bad days. But by that point, I was already, 13 years into not having bad days. And I was just determined to find the positivity in that day. And then I learned a lot about, like Tony Robbins talks about the reticular activating system, but there's like, the idea is that your subconscious mind defaults to the familiar. So like when I got diagnosed with leukemia, it was 10 o'clock at night. Someone said to me, oh, I bet you're having a bad day. And I was like, most of the day was pretty good. Like, I didn't even know I was sick until 10 o'clock at night, and then the next day was a little bit harder. And about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was a shift change. This nurse walks in and she goes, oh my God, Jeff, I'm so sorry to see you here. And I looked at her and I go, oh my God, Shelly, I'm so happy to see you. Because she was like a childhood babysitter of mine. And like, that was enough to make that day positive for me. And on one hand, you'd be like, okay, you're dying of leukemia. On the other hand, like you're seeing a childhood babysitter, which is more significant. But the thing is, it doesn't really matter. Right now, as we sit here, somebody's having the worst day of their life. Somewhere else is in the world, someone's having the best day of their life. Right? So the day is neither objective.
And they could be having the exact same things happening to them and have completely different perspectives.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like somebody can stub their toe and be like, oh, this is the worst day ever. Another person could stub their toe and be like, man, I'm so glad that I still have toes. Like it's, whatever. Like if you try to start your car and it doesn't start, you can be like, dang it, my car isn't working. Or you can be like, I'm so happy I live in a world where like there's Uber, and mechanics.
Because you got that, and then you got all the different ways you can play around with it. Like, hey, maybe this saves me from going into a meeting I didn't want to go into to begin with.
Or
like, always a way to spin it.
A car accident, or maybe you're going to go to the repair shop and meet the love of your life. You just don't know, right? Like, so we just got to roll with this stuff. And if we just look for the positive in everything, after a while, it becomes second nature. And it just becomes it actually becomes pretty easy. And I've had lots of difficult things. I got diagnosed with melanoma 2.5 years ago. I guess maybe almost 3 years ago now, because it's 3 years ago. And I was like, crap, man, 2 cancers, that's real bad. Like, you hear people beating 1 cancer, but that second one is like, usually a bad sign. So my first thought was, oh crap. And my very next thought, like near instantly was, this is going to make a great story on a podcast someday. Like, because that's the kind of that's the kind of way my brain works now. And it really is such a great thing. And so this is the longest answer to your simple question ever. But the reason I got into writing the book was because I thought I had an important thing to say, and I wanted people to experience how great life can be. So the book is really just about living the best possible version of your life.
Well, and I like it. It's a simple cover, and there's a lot of books like that. Be Here Now by D. Or no, that was brain fart. But just seeing the book is enough to remind you of the message.
Yeah, and that's so this is the thing, right? So yeah, the book says no bad days in clear bold letters. But I do this all the time. Like, this is my coffee cup. This isn't a plant. This is a coffee cup I use every day. No bad days. If you look behind me, there's a little one thing up there. Like, if we turn that sideways right here, it says no bad days. Right? Like, this is I just keep this stuff all over the place to remind me. And I've become so much the no bad days guy that even if terrible things happen to me, I have to figure out how to have a good day. Because otherwise, I'll go from being the 37th most interesting man in the world to really boring.
Hey, that works. Well, and you've had fun trips because you went, if I remember correctly, down to Antarctica for some expeditions in the last few years.
Yeah. I mean, so one of the things I think is really important when it comes to mindset is, you have to craft an identity for yourself that you can be really proud of, right? So I've been really successful in real estate, and that's been great. I wasn't always successful. I mean, I literally went from bankrupt to retired in 7 years. So, I mean, I've been on both sides of that stick, right? And once the common denominator has always been what's going on in my brain, though. I felt positive the whole time, and by feeling positive, I was able to see a path forward. Mm-hmm. And one of those things that I thought about early on was, what is the things that are going to be important to me long term? And so I made a list of stuff that I wanted to do. I call it my life list because I don't like bucket lists, because I actually had a bucket list and I crossed the last thing off. I went to Machu Picchu in 2008, and it was literally the last thing on my bucket list, crossed it off. And within 2 weeks, I was in the hospital dying of leukemia. So I was like, whoa, bucket list? Bad. No more bucket list. So the very next day, I was like, I got a bunch of stuff for this list. I'm going to change it to a life list.
Retirement's the exact same way. They've done studies, you age, once you've mentally retired in your mind, you age 15 days for every day. You are accelerating your path to the grave once you have retired.
Yeah, and I consider myself retired, but I still do a lot of work stuff, so it's kind of an illusion, right? I quit my corporate job, and then I started doing more and more real estate stuff, and I kind of backed out of that. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time on real estate right now. But it's because we've created systems in place that take care of it. And so I had a meeting this morning. I mean, it's not like I never do real estate, but I've been going back and forth to Puerto Rico. So I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee right now. I live so far this year. I mean, it's April 10th today, right? When we're recording this. So far this year, so we're 100 days into the year. I've been 45 days in Puerto Rico, right? I went to Maui for a week. I went to Dallas for 4 days. I went to Los Angeles for a couple of days. So how many, and I went to Michigan for a few days. So how many days have I actually been in my home, right? Where I technically live, Chattanooga? Not very many actually, right? And the only reason I've been more in Puerto Rico isn't because I had to be back here in Chattanooga. It's because my residence is here, and I get mail here, and my doctors are here and stuff. So I've just had things out of hand. And it's an amazing way to live your life. I mean, last year I went to Africa twice, I went to Europe twice, I went to South America, I went to Antarctica, like you talked about. And that's I was tempted to go to Asia and Australia just so I could do all 7 continents in a single year. And this year I have a trip planned to Australia, to Fiji, and probably going to go to Belize to a real estate conference. I just made that decision. So if people know about that conference, you can come see me because I'm going to be there. So you know, that's an option too. But yeah, it's just a great way to live your life, to be able to go and explore. Oh, I went to New Orleans this year too. I forgot about that. I went to Mardi Gras and spent a week in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. Talk about a good time.
Nice. I have not been to New Orleans for Mardi Gras yet. And I've seen
Yeah,
it
it's
in
a
other
lot
parts of the
crazy.
country, and
It's a lot crazier than normal New Orleans, but not as much crazier than you would think. So I mean, I didn't know what to expect exactly. I actually went to this, so there's this huge festival in Puerto Rico called San Sebastian Festival. I went to that and they have like 100,000 people packed into like a couple of blocks in Old San Juan. Really cool street party kind of thing. Went to that, and then like 2 weeks later, I went to New Orleans for Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is a lot bigger and a lot crazier than Sanse, but it's not as crazy as what you think it's going to be. Like on the surface, it sounds like it's going to be insanity, and mostly it's just a lot of drinking.
well, that's St. Patty's Day.
Yeah,
it's mostly a lot of drinking, but there can still be some weird luck of the Irish magic going on, that depending on where you're at.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, so I mean, that's really the great part about getting time freedom, right? Like we kind of talked about this off the air before we started, but your show's about finding freedom, and the mental freedom is really important. Like giving yourself freedom from bad days, that makes your whole life better. So that should be like one of the first things you want to do, right? Like you want to get there as soon as you can. But I think I interviewed this guy. I have a couple of podcasts, and one of them is called Last Life Ever. It's about living the best version of your life. And I interviewed this guy, Dr. Tony Pinellas. And Dr. Pinellas said on there that the secret to life is buying back your time as soon as possible. And that's time freedom. That's to me, an amazing and exciting thing. That's what I have now, right? Like I say I'm retired, but I'm still doing stuff. I'm writing books instead of going to a corporate job, right? And the reason I can do that is I don't have to make money for my book. If my book sells, great. If it doesn't sell, that's great. It doesn't really matter, right? Like I wanted to sell because I think it's an important message. In fact, when my publisher when we were first negotiating for my tiny advance that they gave me, as a first-time author, getting any advance is something, but it was really small. Like I spent the entire advance on a bottle of wine in Argentina, actually, because I signed the contract electronically and I go, hey, we're gonna go get a bottle of wine right now. And
there you go. And that's awesome. Right? You got picked up by a regular publisher. Like I know I self-published my first book because I saw how much the publishers keep anyways. And it's like,
oh yeah, no, I would actually make more self-publishing, to be honest with you. But it's cool because of the prestige part, but also because like if someone goes into Barnes and Noble and wants to buy it on the shelf, if you self-publish, it's near impossible to get to that level. I don't know that my book will be available in your local Barnes and Noble, but you certainly can go ask them and they can order it for you, which is like better than a lot of options for self-publishing. But anyway, yeah. So the book, again, I wrote the book and I did all that stuff because of the time freedom I had, though, right? It was like, and so when I was talking to my publisher, and this is where I got sidetracked for a second. When I was talking to the publisher, they asked me, what are your goals for the book, right? Like, how many copies you want to sell, things like that. Like we had these kind of like conversations. And I was talking to the CEO of the publishing house. This is the weird story how that happened when this conversation took place. But I said to him, I said, listen, here's the thing. I would rather have 1 million people read my book and make $1 total than make $1 million and have one person read my book. So for me, it was all about like, how do I get the widest distribution possible? I didn't care that I make less money there. I mean, sure, selling on Amazon, they do that KDP, the print.
Oh God, it's horrible. Stuff. You make a quarter.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you do pretty well, but now if my book sells for $18 on Amazon takes a piece, the printer takes a piece, the publisher takes a piece, and then I get a little tiny sliver of what's left, right? So maybe I make nothing. I don't even know. Like I will see once it starts selling, but but I mean, it's such an insignificant portion unless you sell millions and millions of copies that it doesn't matter. But that is. Maybe it won't happen with this book, but that is one of my goals, is just to keep spreading the message, keep getting people out there living the best version of their life. Everything I do and all of the stuff I do now is designed to help people. I don't, I put real estate deals together where we let people invest alongside of us because it's a good way for them to generate passive income. I write books about mindset because it helps people. I do educational content on YouTube and Instagram about real estate because it helps people make those decisions. And I give that stuff away for free. I don't, other than my book, I have nothing to sell. Like, I haven't, and like I said, I don't think I'll make money on the book either. I'm not saying I won't ever sell something, but it's not about that. It's about just trying to get people out there, helping them, getting them to put them on the right path. And I think that's, it's really great when you can have the sort of life freedom to make, to craft a life that allows you to follow your own passions and your own purpose, and that's to me, we're going to go through that. How do you find freedom? First, freedom from bad days. I think that's super important. The second one is the financial freedom. But the third one is freedom to follow your own passions. I don't know that any one of them is more important than the other, but they're all really, really important.
Well, it's more like building a pyramid. You have to have the base foundation, then you stack on the next level for some financial freedom, which gives you your time freedom, which means you can then work on your passion. Just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
It is. It's just like the hierarchy of needs. And the thing is, you can't even understand what's important to you until you have those first base level freedoms. And that's what Maslow was saying, right? It was like if you can't afford food, you don't care where you sleep, right? And if you have food and you have shelter, then you can start thinking about what's fulfilling to me. And it's the same thing here. Once I got to the point where I wasn't stressed about money and I wasn't worried about, getting up and going to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and all that stuff, it gave me the ability to sit back and think about what was important to me. And there's hacks that you can do on this stuff, right? You don't need to be completely financially free to get time freedom. For example, you could be between jobs and not have a lot of money, but you just happen to have enough money that you don't mind starting your next job for a month instead of in a week, right? Or you might just take all your vacation time, 3-4 weeks vacation, whatever, 2 weeks vacation, whatever you have, and just book yourself a Airbnb cabin somewhere and sit by yourself for 2 weeks and think about what's important to you. Because that time of reflecting, journaling, writing, staring at the ocean, whatever it is, right? Hiking, but getting yourself out of your normal routine for more than a couple of days. There's a lot of at least circumstantial evidence on this. It takes people about 7 to 10 days to decompress from work. So if you go on a 1-week vacation, even tagging a couple of weekends on it, by the time your vacation is done, you're just about ready to be actually on vacation, right? So you got to take.
It depends on how frequently your vacations are.
Yeah, of course, it does matter. Yeah, it's certainly, like I said, circumstantial. But for me, for years, I've tried to take 1 month off. It used to be I'd take 1 month off every 3 or 4 years. Then it was every other year. Then it was every year. And then last year, I think I took 9 months off. So because I'm exaggerating a little, but I barely spent any time actually working in the last year.
I feel you. When I used to live in Colorado, it was all seasonal work. So, you'd work from right before Memorial Day till just after Labor Day. You'd have a month and a half off in the fall till the first snow hit. Then you go work on ski slopes, construction or whatever. Yeah. And then same way in the spring, as soon as the slope shut down April 15th, you didn't go back till Memorial Day for summer season. So I got 2 months off a year to just disappear to the woods and enjoy. And
for most of human history, that's how most people have lived. It's only modern Western societies that don't have that, right? Like hunter-gatherers had to get food forever, but they also only worked a couple hours a day. Once they got their food, they were done, right? And then as we've evolved, even when you started doing agriculture and farmers, there's growing seasons and then there's winter, right? People would just rest. And we don't get that in modern America, right? We don't have that sort of freedom. Rich people still do, obviously. And so that's one way to do it. And there are certain careers that do too. And I'm not minimizing this, but if you're a college professor, there's a tradition of taking a sabbatical every 5 or 6 years, right? Taking a whole year off, right? That's super useful. It allows those people to do research, to learn, to clarify their thoughts. But they did this in the churches too, right? Pastors and bishops and stuff got sabbatical years. time to just reflect and figure out what's important to them. And I really think it's super important. Even like Europeans get this, right? Like Australians too. Like Australians almost all take gap years, right? They finish college and they take a whole year off before they go to work. Like, why don't you do that? You know, and people don't, in America, you say that, like, I tell someone, hey, I'm going to go to Africa for a month to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And they're like, what? You're going to go for a month? How does that work? You know, like if you're not retired, you don't get a month off. And I'm kind of like, man, a month went really fast. I probably should have done 2 months.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like how I set up my 20s and into the early 30s. It was having that time to reflect and figure out, what am I going to do for the world? How am I going to transform it? You know, learn the deeper aspects of know yourself and learn how the universe itself works. It's like, had I not taken all that time back then and had those experiences, like, you know, and I've had health issues in the last year. It's like, I wouldn't be able to do those same things now.
Yeah, no, and that was another like big takeaway from one of my shows. I interviewed this guy, Jeff Alt, about hiking the Appalachian Trail, but he did it when he was like right out of college. And he said that what motivated him to do it was he was involved in an accident where if it had gone just a little bit different, he would have died. Right? He ended up being fine. Like it was a rollover accident. The car just missed him while he was on the street. And if it had hit him, he would not have survived, more likely than not. And it made him realize you can't bank on your health. Like things you can do now doesn't mean you're able to do them later. And I would say it's actually selfish not to do those things. People say to me like, wasn't it selfish to like, you know, spend all this time traveling or whatever? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like me living the best version of my life helps me, sure, but it also helps my family, it helps my community, and it helps the world, right? Like, you know, that 37th most interesting man in the world thing that you alluded to, it started out as a joke, but now I'm trying to lean into that. Like I'm trying to do more interesting things to inspire other people to do more interesting things. And I'm hopeful that by this time next year, I'll be like 34th most interesting man in the world, right? And like maybe by the time
well, now you got to be bipolar, go to the North Pole. You went to the South Pole, now you got to go.
Yeah, no, well, I haven't been to either pole, actually. Antarctica, of course, is a very big continent, but I would love to actually go to the South Pole. It's much harder to get to the South Pole than the North Pole. But I actually interviewed a guy that was the youngest man ever to go to all of the countries in the world and the North and South Pole. He did it by like 34. It kind of depressed me though, because I was like, I consider myself pretty well traveled, but I'm more than 34 and I have not been to all the countries in the world. So there's, you know, still things out there for me to experience.
Absolutely. And it's a never ending game. That's why you work for the liberty. Like now we, my honey and I, we try and do a 1 week vacation a month. So, you know, we can focus on our books and other things, not just the real estate. And, you know, I'm still working on building bigger, like before we got in here, I talked about, I'm working on getting marinas up and down the East Coast for the longer big term projects for New Atlantis. So we can actually have a free country again, because unfortunately, America is not going the direction towards freedom.
Yeah, I mean, and there's definitely a pendulum that happens where like things get a little bit more free and then they get less free and then they get a little bit more free and they get a little bit less free. But it's definitely a pendulum that keeps shifting further away from freedom. Like each swing of that thing, it's like we get a little bit more free, then we get a lot less free. Then we get a little bit more free and then a lot less free. And so on the margins, these things matter. And, you know, you said something earlier. You said that you spent that time figuring out how you were going to impact the world. That's amazing, right? But like the thing about this is we don't always know, right? Like I would love to make the whole world give up bad days. That would be amazing. Like if there were no bad days left in the world, like mission accomplished. I can just retire comfortably then, right? But the thing is, let's say there's one person watching your show or listening to your show that hears this, they go and buy my book, they read the book, and they figure out how to give up bad days. One person. I might not change the entire world, but I changed that person's world. Right. And that person changed someone else's world, and there's a cumulative effect of this stuff.
Exactly. The ripple effect.
Yeah. And I mean, I just don't know, like someday that person might actually change the whole world. right? Or somebody that's in that chain of that ripple effect. And so like, I feel like, if I don't go do these things and don't raise awareness to things that are important to me, then I'm being selfish, not the opposite way, right? And that's what I was trying to get at before. It's like, so for you, like my best advice to you is, yes, keep taking that week off a year to like focus, or every month to focus, but like also recognize that this is a lifelong process. Like, there's an expression that goes something like this, that integrity is a mountain with no top. Have you heard this? So the idea is that you get to these false summits, like you're looking up at the hill and you go, oh, there, when I get there, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be the most interesting man in the world. I'm gonna be fully integrity, whatever, right? And that's kind of what I think with the whole mindset. It's like you think, oh, if I go do this, then I'm gonna be in the right headspace. And you get up there and then you realize, oh, there's actually another peak that's higher up. And it's just like that forever. Like we just keep becoming better and better people over time, and we have to do it. Because the only option is go up or go down. There's no, you can't stay in the same place. Yeah, you're either getting better or you're getting worse.
That's what I've always found fascinating. It's like, because you're growing together or you're growing apart for a relationship. It's like, if one of you is growing, one of you not, it's going to cause a split over time.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I'm working on building my empire with my honey. So she's there with me, beside me, not in front of or behind me.
Yeah, no, and that is the right, I think that's the right strategy. I mean, in a relationship though, like you can grow together and grow differently at the same time, right? Like it's cool if you guys are building a business together, that's awesome, right? But sometimes you'll have a partner, like a romantic partner, a spouse, whatever, that doesn't have any interest in what you're doing in your business, but they're working on something else, and the two of you are supporting each other's paths, and you're growing mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever it is, and your relationship becomes stronger because of that. So I wouldn't like pigeonhole the strategy. Like to me, the trick to a successful relationship, and I mean, I'm probably the worst guy to ask this because I just got divorced like 3 weeks ago, right? But like,
do I say condolences or congratulations for that one?
I'm glad it's done. It was a shock. Talk about like, testing the theory about not having bad days. So my wife, she went out, or my ex-wife went out on the Appalachian Trail to do the 21-mile through hike, and she came back with a new girlfriend, and it was a bit of a surprise to me. But she's been living inauthentically for her entire adult life, and she needed to fix that. And we fortunately have a lot of mutual respect for each other. And so while it was difficult emotionally, we have gotten through the process and divided up a relatively complicated financial situation without any fighting at all. Like we never fought a single time about any financial instrument or any piece of real estate or any bank account. And I think that's so in that sense,
that's a huge win there.
It's a huge congratulations for that. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like, this is, you go back to the mindset piece. It's like when bad stuff happens, and objectively, from my perspective, my wife being gay is an inconvenient thing at the very least, right? Like it can change the dynamic of our relationship pretty dramatically. But what happened was, because my mind says positive things come from everything, I immediately started thinking, okay, how does this work? How do we do this? Like, and I use mental tricks for myself all the time, and this comes from all of this time growing. One thing I like doing is projecting myself into the future and saying, what will 3 years from now Jeff be proud of today Jeff doing, right? So I made a decision, like within hours of finding this out, that I needed to be respectful, and I needed to try to understand where she was coming from. Now, was that easy? No, it was terrible. It's not that I didn't mourn and grieve and get angry. I did all of the emotions. It's not like giving up bad days makes everything easy and it eliminates all the range of emotions. And in fact, it wouldn't be healthy if it did. You have to have positive and negative feelings in your life, but by looking at that day and saying, okay, what good's going to come from today, it kept me focused on a positive future. And now I have a different level of autonomy that I didn't have before. Before, I'm making decisions about what's best for us as a family unit. Now I can make decisions about what's best for me, and I'm making decisions that are different, frankly, than I would have made if I were still married right now. Like I mean, Mardi Gras is a good example of that. I don't think I would have went to Mardi Gras as a married guy. Right? Like not that it was full of debauchery, but like it's just not the kind of it wouldn't be the kind of thing that I would have chosen to do. And it was a great experience. I hung out with a couple of my friends from college, and we had an amazing time. And it was something that I needed to do then. I don't know that I'll ever do it again, but I'm able to move forward in my life because of that, and the mindset really matters for those things.
Well, and you made a couple of really good points, because the feelings come and go. You have to let them, flow like water. I know Tony Robbins likes to not let something bother him more than 90 seconds. And I agree with that mentality, because you can not mess up your hormones, because just being angry for one solid minute, reduces your immune system response by 50% for the next 4 to 6 hours. Where a solid minute of laughter doubles the immune system for up to 24, which is fascinating, shows you positive emotions are stronger. But I also like the future self. That's something I do. You project of who you are when you have achieved your goals, come back, ask your future self, like, what would you do in this situation? What's going to help move you forward towards where you want to go.
Yeah, so you do that from a goal perspective, but in this case, it wasn't even a goal. Like I wasn't even thinking goals. Like I had no clue, and then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, my whole future's different, right? I have this whole set of goals planned out, where we're gonna retire, like the whole thing in my mind, not identical every word, but I had this life plan, and then all of a sudden my life plan goes like this, off in a completely different direction. And so I said, I could be angry, I could be spiteful, I could get into a big battle, but none of that would have been something I'd be proud of later. And so I just went like, first thought, how am I going to make sure I make my future self proud? If I did that, then I'm happy. And now looking back, like, this is over the last 8 months or so, we just finished everything up. But like, even now looking back, I'm super happy with how I handled it. And as a result of how I handled it, it impacted how my ex-wife handled it. Right. If I had been angry and divisive, then she would have gotten angry and divisive, and we would be in a completely different spot. And instead, just this last week, I said to her, hey, look, like, can you come out like clothing shopping with me? Because I have this date and I'm terrible at picking out clothes. Right. I realize that's a weird relationship. And I don't think we're going to be like best friends or anything, but I want to, this person was my best friend for 20 years. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna just be like, oh, yep, now we can never talk again. That doesn't make sense either. Like, our relationship is different, but that doesn't mean we don't have a relationship.
Yeah, that reminds me like Robert Kiyosaki and his wife. It's like they aren't married anymore, but they're still doing business together. You learn how to still be friends, which is in and of itself a show of emotional intelligence way beyond where most people get.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't know that. I mean, I knew about them being separated, but I didn't know it was a public thing, actually. So, like, I had heard about it several years ago, and I just was like, oh, I don't know if that's public or not. But yeah, it's the same thing, right? Like, it's difficult to maintain a business with someone, and like they do like podcasting together and stuff still, right? Like, it's got to be difficult at times to do that. But also when you have a business, you don't have a choice, right? Like my ex and I have a lot of business interests that are common right now. It'll taper off over time because we don't have any like giant conglomerates like they have. But it could be 10 years or 15 years before we don't own stuff together. Because I'm not going to go sell everything real quick or refinance and buy her out of it, or have her refinance and buy me out of everything, because everything's set up in a really easy to manage, not difficult way that produces income for both of us now instead of just for me.
Right, and why go through the headache when interest rates are high?
Yeah, it's hard time.
It doesn't make financial sense.
Yeah, so like why would I want to mess with that stuff? Now, don't get me wrong, like if we weren't getting along, then that would be what we have to do. But this is just another example. Like our collective financial position is significantly better because of the way our relationship played itself out.
Which is good. So, Jeff, we've had some fun on the No Bad Days. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? I know the book's not coming out till the 25th.
Right, 2 weeks though. I mean, it's 2 weeks, so it's coming out soon. So the book is available for pre-order everywhere, so people can just pre-order it. But the best way to get a hold of me is probably Instagram. It's at Jeffrey Holst, JEFFREYHOLST. But it's also just like it says on the screen or on the book, if people are seeing that. So it's at Jeffrey Holst. And that's, by the way, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all of them. It's always at Jeffrey Holst. I try to be really consistent with that. Even my B reel is Jeffrey Holst. So, and you
That's
probably
pretty
don't
cool.
even know what a B reel is. So,
Well, the B-reels are really fun for all your bloopers and all the other stuff that doesn't.
well, so that's fun too. But there's a social media app called B Real, like be for real, like that kind of real. And,
Okay.
and it's
I
a
didn't know
fun-
about that app.
It's a one-a-day posting app, and all the kids are using it now. And I'm trying to stay relevant, you know. And so I'm trying to be on everything, you know. So I'm on Be Real. I think I'll have 4 followers, maybe I'll have 5 once you sign up. And but it's really fun actually. Like you take a front picture and a back picture, and everyone does it at the same time all around the country, the same 2-minute window. And like you'll get a notice on your phone and it'll be like, it's time to be real. And if it came up right now, I'd pick up my phone and I'd take a picture of me talking to you, and it would take a picture of front and back at the same time, and then I'd hit submit. And then that's the only thing that anyone can see. Like there's really no like tech. You can caption it, but you can't really get very much information. And it's kind of like stories on Instagram. It goes away after 24 hours when the next Be Real time comes.
That's kind of cool.
It actually is kind of fun. I like it. And like I said, my nieces are doing it. So I'm like, oh, then if my 13-year-old niece thinks it's cool, I got to learn it, because you know what happened with TikTok? My now 17-year-old niece thought it was cool when she was 13, and no one had heard of it then either, and it was everywhere.
I tried the TikTok in 2020, but I ended up having to get a whole new phone because China hacked into it, and I almost lost my Facebook and everything else.
No, I hear you.
But I was running for the Libertarian presidential nomination again, so I might have been a little more of the Chinese target than the average person.
Yeah, well, I don't know that China cares about libertarians too much, because as much as I lean libertarian myself, but I think China doesn't really care about libertarians because they have very little impact on society, unfortunately, at this point. But that might change, so maybe.
It's okay. They went up enough for me that they even like copied my wine that I make at home, and
Nice.
I see it like shortly thereafter from the election. It's like, nice, China has a Jedi's mind trick wine. Now after watching my stuff.
Well, politics is a tricky thing, right? Like I ran for office once as a Republican back in 2008, and then it was right before I got diagnosed with leukemia, and I didn't do enough canvassing. It was a local office, and I almost got the nomination, and it was in a district where the nomination was the election, right? Like as a Republican, you were guaranteed to win. It was a township trustee thing. And I was only 100 or so votes away. And I really think if I hadn't been sick and I'd done some door to door, I would have done it. I just thought I was lazy. It turns out my white blood cells were skyrocketing and I was actually dying. So that's why I was tired all the time. But fortunately, I didn't die. But it did teach me one thing. I'm so happy I didn't win that election, because even though I was disappointed at the time, once I got sick and realized what was happening, it allowed me to change my entire life. I mean, where I am now would be completely different than it would have been had I won that election. And that's kind of what I was saying about like the starting a car thing, right? Like you don't know what's going to happen. So I don't look back at any of that stuff and regret it, because I love where I live. I love my life. Mm-hmm. And if you're happy with where you are, then whatever choice you made at the time, whatever things that happened to you, that they're the things that got you to where you are now.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think first thought in the morning is thank you, Lord, for another day.
Yeah, and actually, I saw this TikTok. Speaking of TikToks, just yesterday, this guy said, "Hey, if I gave you $1 million, would that make you happy?" And the girl was like, "Well, I mean, I wouldn't be sad about it. I don't know if it'd make me happy or not." And he goes, "Well, how about if I gave you $10 million? Would you be grateful if I just gave you $10 million right now?" Right? And the girl's like, "Well, yeah, I'd be grateful if you handed me $10 million in cash right now." And he said, "What if I put a condition on the $10 million that today's the last day you'll ever live, and that tomorrow you're not going to wake up? Would you take the $10 million? And she was like, "Well, no, of course not." Right. And then he's like, "Then how come when you wake up every morning, you don't jump up and down with joy for the fact that you just woke up? Because you just said it's worth more than $10 million to you to wake up tomorrow morning." So what you just said right there about when you wake up in the morning and thank God for another day, yeah, it's worth more than $10 million to you, right? Because you wouldn't trade your life for $10 million.
Absolutely. I've been near death way too many times.
Yeah, same. So I'm with you.
Oh, well, thank you, Jeff. Any last word piece you'd like to give the audience?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you want to support me, the best thing you can do is try to buy my book on April 25. So if you're watching this right now, put a calendar note out, buy it on April 25. It'll help us get the bestseller status. But if you don't think you're going to remember, just buy it now. It'll get shipped to you on April 25 anyway. So.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And for all you watching, make sure you like and subscribe down below so you can get more things on how you can help with your freedom. It's a Jedi signing off.